Shalom, welcome to Rob on the Rock. I'm Rob Vanoff, and for this week's Torah portion, Vayelek, Deuteronomy 31, we're going to look at a fragment from the Herodian era, written in Hebrew block script here, and it is from Cave 4, and which is this little piece right here. And there are other little pieces from this same manuscript. You can see it was a little piece of leather, and you can see at the top here where the early scholars of the Dead Sea Scrolls were using like some kind of Scotch tape to hold these things together. It's kind of crazy, but you can kind of see this. Can I zoom in on that? You can kind of see the Scotch tape there. But just before we even read the text, I just want to point out, or the English translation that I have below, I want to just see what we can read here. Look right in the middle there. I imagine that many of you who know Hebrew can read that, and you're reading right from a fragment of the Dead Sea Scrolls. What's this first letter? This first letter here, do you recognize that letter? How about the letter next to it? And then finally, this letter, because remember Hebrew, we start on the right and we go to the left. Well, perhaps you were able to identify this is a mem, this is a shin, and this is a letter hey. And this is the name Moshe. We would vocalize it like that with the Tiberian notation, Moshe. And then we see a letter Aleph here. So Moshe plus a letter Aleph. What else do we see up above? Now we can see that this letter here and this letter are the same. And we might think that those look like a chet, and they do. They do look like a later chet. But remember, back there was a variety of different scribal conventions in the Second Temple era. And one of them, the hey, looks different than what we might expect, like this. And these are two-letter heys. So we're going to say this is hey. Then this little guy is just a Zion. So we're going to write him like that. Maybe not this long. And then we have another Aleph. And then we have a Tav. And so that word is hazot. Hazot. So we have Hazot, we have Moshe, with an Aleph, and then something. And then you probably could read this as well. These are two words. Here's the first word, and here's the second word. Can you read those? It says, all Israel. So this is Kaf. Oops. Kaf. And look at that beautiful Lamed going way up like that. Yod, Shin, but remember we pronounce that as a Sin because this letter, but just a real quick review, this letter does double duty in Hebrew. It's one character, it's one letter, but it can represent two phonemes. So one letter, two sounds. Think of like in English, we say the word circle. It's a good example. So we use the letter C twice, but even though we're using the same letter, it has two phonemes. The first is a S sound. The second is a K sound. How do we learn how come we don't say Circle or Kirkle? It's because we have the cultural background to know where we learn the word. We learn that C has more than one phoneme. That's what's true with the letter Shin in ancient Israel. So that's a S sound. Here's a Resh, Isra, Aleph, and a Lamed, Israel. Kol, Israel. So, oops, let me erase that, and I'll put it underneath. Kol, Yisrael. There we go. So if we zoom out, what do we have? We have Hazot, We have Moshe with an aleph, and then we have Kol Yisrael. And you can see that this was a nice right justification. So there's nothing over here, right? This is not a continuation of something from the same line, but a start of a new line in each place. So what is it? Well, what I've got here below is a translation from Deuteronomy 31, 9 through 13. And the words I have in bold here are the words that we see in this fragment. Deuteronomy 31, 9 through 13. So Moses wrote this Torah, HaTorah Hazot. HaTorah Hazot. So that's the word this we see up there. And gave it to the Kohanim, the sons of Levi, who carried the Ark of the Covenant of Adonai, and to all the elders of Israel. Then Moses commanded them. Well, you would say, well, why do I have them in bold? Well, maybe it should be just partially in bold. But if we go back up, remember that aleph? What we know here is that it's aleph, and then that's a vav, otam, and it means them, which means the last word on the previous line, way down here, would be vaitzav, and he commanded, vaitzav Moshe otam, and Moses commanded them. So that's how we know Moshe otam. Remember, in Hebrew, we get the verb first. It's commanded Moses them. So that's why I have them here in the bold. Saying, at the end of every 7 years, at the time of the year of the release of debts, at the feast of Sukkot, when all Israel, Kol Yisrael, bold, comes to appear before Adonai your God at the place which he will choose, you shall read this Torah before all Israel so that they may hear it. So that they hear it. Assemble the people, the men, the women, the children, and the stranger who is in your town, so that they may hear and learn and fear Adonai your God, and to be careful to follow all the words of this Torah. So here's just an important side note. This is important, so that they may hear and learn and fear, and be careful to follow. So the question is, who's the they? Assemble the people, the men, the women, the children, the stranger who is in your town, so that they all. We learned this from Parashat Nitzavim. All y'all. That included your heads, your tribes, right? It said your elders, your officers, right? All that list from Deuteronomy 29. Here they is referring back, people, men, women, children, stranger, that they may hear and learn and fear Adonai your God, and be careful to follow all the words, and their children. So who's the they? The same. Who have not known will hear and learn to fear Adonai your God, as long as you live on the land which you are about to cross over the Jordan to possess. Great passage of Scripture. The core bit here for our purposes is to point out that this is the only place in the Torah where we have these words clustered together in this way, and we know that this is in fact a fragment from Deuteronomy 31. Now, what we don't know is, was this a complete Torah scroll? Probably not. Was it a complete roll of Deuteronomy? Possibly. Or was it what scholars call, they refer to an excerpted text? An excerpted text. What does that mean? That means where scribes, and maybe you've done this yourself in your own devotional life, you have a notebook and you're thinking about a certain theme, a certain topic, and you write a bunch of different diverse Bible passages and you put them all together in a few pages, just quoting one after the other. That would be you creating what we call an excerpted text. If an archaeologist found your notebook 1,000 years from now, they would look at it and say, oh, what this person did is they had a Bible, and they might even compare with different English translations that are available then and say, oh, we can see this person copied from the King James Version, and they went and they copied from Jeremiah and Romans and the Gospel of Matthew and Deuteronomy and put them all in just a few pages. They would say that's an excerpted text. It doesn't mean you put commentary on it. It doesn't even mean that that you put a note as to your rationale of why you put these texts together. But we presume with the excerpted text that they were texts that seemed important to the scribe. They were brought together for the purpose of study and meditation. So it seems to me that this fragment is either a fragment of Deuteronomy as a whole, maybe just a few chapters of Deuteronomy, or maybe perhaps even excerpts from different scriptures all put together on a small scroll. And this section from Deuteronomy 31 is part of it. So there you go. Good block, Hebrew block script from the Herodian era, which means, approaching the year zero, so 1st century BC into 1st century AD. It is, at least with the fragment we have here, it looks no different than the Masoretic text, although other fragments that exist from this particular manuscript might show that it's not exactly aligned with the Masoretic text. But at least with these few bits that we've looked at today, there's no difference. Again, if you haven't, so be sure to subscribe to my channel, like this video, share it with someone who's learning Hebrew. It's important that the body of Messiah learns Hebrew in a sound way, not in a sensational way, not Hebrew word pictures, not letter mysticism, but actual Hebrew language, because that's where the body will grow healthy and strong and competent in what is good and true. And that's what I'm aiming to do here. And if you'd like to support my work, I've got a link to my PayPal that you can contribute that way. Thanks. Shalom.